Welcome, friends, to Growing Smart, the Stronghold podcast, arguably the most caffeinated podcast available today. Glad you like your caffeine as much as I do. Today will be yet another caffeinated rant, but I think you're going to find it interesting. I'm going to talk about cold calling again. We talked about it recently, but I'm going to give you an opinion on cold calling that I think you'll appreciate. And then if you agree with me, what you can do about it to reach your customers. Well, here's a hint of where we're going without cold calling. That's all today on Growing Smart. Here we go. My start in cold calling when I was just 19. I got my first real sales job then. I was a telemarketer. That was in the late 90s when telemarketing still worked, and I did very, very well for myself as a telemarketer back in the day. A lot of people did, and so everybody was getting their phones blown up left and right, and it stopped working. People started getting irritated. Telemarketing was not necessarily it was like the used car sales of phone sales. It was bad. And, it stopped working really well. So I say that just so that I can remind you that the way we approach selling does change historically over time. If someone just cold calls you out of the blue today and doesn't really relate to you very quickly or add any instant value, or pretty much no matter what, let's just be honest, pretty much no matter what, if somebody calls you, you're probably just going to hang up on them or say, take me off your list or whatever. You're just not going to accept it. And that's really been a change in the past 20 years. 20 years ago, it worked. So if we're being honest, we can admit that direct sales has changed. Now, most sales trainers out there get really irritated when you say that because they make their living selling people on how to cold call and telemarket. And the fact of the matter is, again, it can work. I'm not saying it can't work. In order for it to work, though, three things have to happen. Number one, you have to have some sort of credibility. Meaning you have to call someone and instantly verify yourself as being credible, validate yourself somehow, or you have to be recognizable, which really makes it not a cold call. Number two, you have to make sure your message is tailored to them, meaning you already qualified them. It can't be if you're a salesperson struggling from, or if you're a business owner struggling from, you should already know they're a business owner struggling from whatever it is. So you have to have already qualified them. You have to tailor your message to them. And then next, you have to very carefully introduce yourself and offer value without in any way, shape, or form being aggressive. I mean, that's really what works. I can tell you that I've had people in my company cold call businesses for me. And they've called those businesses. We already know who they are. First thing we do is we tell them who we are, why we're calling. In a way that lets them know we're not weird, that we have a reason to call them. And then we say something very specific to them, such as, hey, we know you attended this or that event. We didn't get a chance to introduce ourselves to you there, and we just wanted to make that introduction. We had something valuable we wanted to send you. That was something, not that salesy sounding, but something in that general vein, which is like, hey, I've actually got a reason to pick up the phone and dial you. I'm someone that has a reason to call you. You're someone that I have a reason to talk to. And just very, very quickly, here's how I wanted to give you something of value. And that's a very generic way, a very generic kind of sketch of how I do train people to successfully cold call. But I can tell you, people take that script and they just abuse it. don't have a reason to call people. They don't have people they should be calling, and they just think the script is somehow magical. It doesn't work that way. Now, the fact of the matter is that a lot of people don't have enough people that they can call in that legitimate way. So you have to go about meeting people in different ways. And that's why we spend so much time looking at digital marketing, effective networking, strategic partnerships, and all of those ways to actually make those first impressions. So then your follow-up is really that script I've given. And I know if you don't normally follow the show, or if you're not a normal follower of what I do, some of this may be coming at you at a fast pace. You may be having a hard time keeping up. But I'm saying all of that to say this. Aside from what I just told you, cold calling is not really an acceptable way of approaching the market today. I didn't say it's ineffective, because there are people who have effectively cold called people. But I'm saying it's not really an acceptable way. Meaning it's not what the buyer wants. And it's not really what most salespeople want to do. And most sales trainers out there are just trying to flip that script. They're trying to get people to realize that it can still work. They're trying to give them some magical ways of doing it. And we're just perpetuating the pain, guys. It's almost 2020. And perhaps when you're listening to this, it is 2020. Why cold call today? There is a billion other ways to reach people. Now, I'm not against direct sales, meaning I'm not against interrupting someone's day to introduce yourself and to help them. But you have to be very, very strategic about that. And I find that most of the people who are training on how to do that, and a lot of the people out there attempting to do it, are just perpetuating the old way. And gosh, it's just painful to watch. So if you're just giving up on direct sales in that way, and you want to have a much more palatable approach, then go to strongholdtraining.com. Check out what we do. I would love to help you, whether it's group coaching or coming through the sales optimizer or one of our other trainings. I would, or just me coming out to your team, I'd love to help you. But that's not the point of what I'm trying to say here today. What I'm trying to say today is just this. If you agree with me, aside from those few exceptions I mentioned at the beginning, which you may want to be which you may be now more interested in, but aside from those things, if you agree with me that cold calling is pretty much unacceptable to the vast majority of people you're calling on, and if you agree that you just don't want to do it, then well, what do we do? Now, I've had other episodes where I've talked about digital marketing, and that works. I've had other episodes where I talked about effective networking, and that works. I've had other episodes where I talked about strategic partnerships, and that really works. But what if you just don't have that? What if you still want to take a direct sales approach? You still want to reach directly out to people? Well, let's go back to what I said at the beginning of this broadcast. You have to have a way, first and foremost, to introduce yourself to people, to make yourself credible. If that's a referral, great. If that's some sort of online way of introducing yourself, great. If that's because they've opted in for a lead magnet you have, great. But if not, if you're going to call and introduce yourself, then here's the catch. Number one, you've got to know who you really want to reach out to. If you are not absolutely positive, as far as it can depend on you to discover without a phone call or some sort of deeper discovery, if you are generally as positive as you can be that you're going to be able to help people, then those specific people are the only ones you call. Don't make your cold call a qualification call. There's just too much information out there, guys. You don't have to do it today. For example, let's say I call on doctors' offices. I sell pharmaceuticals or medical equipment to doctors. If I can't figure out if this doctor could potentially use my equipment, and I just have a list of 1,000 doctors and I don't know which ones need my equipment, which ones don't, I have absolutely no reason to pitch them anything. I need to show up there and just say, okay, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Gatekeeper, I have no idea if I can be a resource for you. I just wonder, do you have XYZ equipment here? How many, if you have to get information, then your call is to get information. That's not a cold call. Your call is just to get information. If you get that information, you get it and you move on. Until you have a list of people that you go, okay, now I've done the research. I have a list of people that I can actually call. And then you're going to follow up and say, okay, I believe I can actually help you. But I know you don't know me, so I need to introduce myself to you, and I wanted to send some information over to you as to who I am. What's the number one blow off you get? Send us some information. How about we stop sending them information that pitches our product? Because they're immune to that. How about first we discover if we can actually help them by finding out if they're qualified. Just qualify them. Hopefully not through calling them, but if you have to, call them if you need to get that information. Second, you just establish yourself as someone credible. So you just call and you make an introduction. It can be as simple as, I just want to call and send some information over to you. I'm not selling anything today. I don't have a pitch. I'm not sending you anything to sell you. I'm just going to call. I'm just going to send you a bio on me. I'm just going to send you some information on our company and what we do. That's all I want to do. General brand marketing. Why? Because you're not credible at this point. Unless you're already credible, then you can skip the step. Unless they're already qualified, then you can skip the first step. But if not, you don't call them and try breaking down the door, because it's not going to work. So the first thing you do is you ensure that they're qualified. Second thing you do is you establish yourself as credible. Then you can call up and say, hey, I know I can help you because you meet X, Y, and Z parameter. You know who I am. I've introduced myself to you. I sent you information on me before. I believe I can be a resource for you. Here's how I suggest we move forward. And you ask them for the smallest of introductory calls. And you offer them some value in that. If we have this call, this is what you'll get. Don't just say, so I can maybe sell you something or I might be able to help you. You say, in 15 minutes, we're going to have a call. And in that 15 minutes, I'm going to give you something of value. It's either going to be a piece of information that can help them. It's going to be an analysis that gives them data on themselves. It's going to be some sort of process you're going to walk them through where they get something back. If they're going to invest 15 minutes in you to have an introductory initial call, then they need to get something out of it, not just you potentially pitching them. So you have to arrange your intro call for that. That's why a lot of people have like some sort of analysis that gives them some sort of feedback that they'll appreciate. And a lot of times you have to send them a sample of that first. Hey, I know that the direct salespeople out there would rail against this and tell you, hey, we train people to blast those doors off and not do that. But I'm trying to give you something that's going to work with 90% or more of the people you call so that you can actually enjoy selling again. And that's the process. If you don't know if they're qualified, then you call and you just ask a couple questions and move on. If you're not someone that they know, recognize, or is credible with them, then you have to establish yourself as credible by sending them some information. And then if you're going to do some sort of discovery meeting with them or introductory meeting, you have to invite them to that and tell them what they're going to get out of that. And it has to be worth the time. It has to absolutely be worth the time to 90% of the people you're going to call. And you still have a sales hurdle in front of you and how you articulate all of that. But that is the absolute effective way of quote unquote cold calling in the modern age. I hope you have found that helpful. You can find more on this stuff at strongholdtraining.com. If I can be a help to you there, you can schedule a 15-minute call with me there. And what you're going to get in that 15 minutes is I'm going to help you just like I am now. Even if I don't end up working with you, if you spend 15 minutes on the phone with me, talking to me about what you're going through, I'm happy to give you some unpaid consulting. I'm happy to give you 15 minutes of my time because you know what I believe and you know what I've come to know, that if you help people, if you significantly help people, they'll typically pay you to let you keep on helping them if your price is right and if they're the right customer for you. So if you'd like to schedule 15 minutes with me, you can do so at strongholdtraining.com. But until next time, this has been Growing Smart. Stop cold calling and start helping.